Excellent. So thank you all for joining me. This is Coming Up for Air with myself, Corey Carter. I'm actually going to start with a short piece of writing called Sea Turtle. Calling for tides of change in this sea of whiteness. For 50 years, they've deemed me an invasive species, and somehow those who teach me won't ever carry my likeness. I might just stand alone. Bet if they cast the nets wide, they might also catch a glimpse what calls one question to mind. Privilege. What is it? Have to wonder if you left this world to explain what isn't. Mine, you can't just visit. Try, grasp the concept and gasp for air, lungs inefficient. There's more to the movement, not just swimming, especially when that description depends on the type of skimming, habitat, the habitat, drowns one with no habitat, calls one body to resurface. Schools of view pass packed to the gills. Must I fit in? Do you see purpose? Understand, ecologically, it's indeed worth it. Curse it, but my swarm can't even hurt. I exhale the atmos I breathe circle. Evidence I must concede to curfew as I ask how often you see turtle. So that's my piece, Sea Turtle. It's from an upcoming autoethnographic hip hop album, which is documenting my journey to and through the classroom as a Black male educator. And our session today is going to talk about just the process of creating that, and also some tools and impacts that I think could potentially serve other educators of color. So before we jump into that, I always think it's important just to recognize who and where we are. So for today, in the virtual space, I recognize that means we'll have some different things than what we traditionally expect in a presentation. So what that means today is I absolutely want this to be a participative, a space where you can participate and share, and I want it to be open and inviting for that. And then I also want to acknowledge the land that we occupy too. So because we're in the virtual space, you may be coming here from Paris, France. You might be here from Florida. You might be here from California. I myself am in Maryland. And so I just want to quickly acknowledge that we are in a colonized space. And so we are occupying the land of the Piscataway, the Nanticoke, the Cushtink, and Susquehanna. So I recognize that those people originally occupied this space and that they continue to thrive in this area as well. So we recognize that and celebrate their humanity. So with that, I also want to take a second now to recognize who is in the space. So without further ado, I just want to give y'all a second to introduce yourself. Tell me what area of education you work in, and just a little bit of what brings you to the Bond Academy today.
Anyone can jump in. Go ahead, fellas.
All right, I'll jump in. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Doug Handy. I work for Baltimore County Public Schools here in Maryland. The current position is Director for Career and Technical Education and Fine Arts. Coming to the Bond Academy, just I guess after a couple of years of knowing about Bond, I was prepared to participate last year, and I know there was a halt to that. I've since then had a pleasure of interacting with some of the brothers from Bond in different spaces, and I really look forward to participating this year. Love the platform. So far, it's been an outstanding experience, and also glad to say Corey is one of my closest, dearest colleagues. I usually call him my brother. So certainly want to keep up with what he's doing and support him in any way I can and be a part of what he's sharing. So just good to be here. Thank you.
It's awesome. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Wayne Muhammad. I'm a charter school principal. I work with National Heritage Academies, which is a charter school network. We have about 100 schools located in 10 different states. I'm based out of North Carolina. I've been a principal at a school there in Durham, North Carolina for the last 5.5 years, but I live in Greensboro, North Carolina. But currently, I am in Detroit, Michigan. I'm in a new position as a leader on assignment. And so basically I'm a Joe Clark on wheels. I travel around to our different schools, trying to help out where there are some leadership gaps. And so right now have the pleasure of being in Detroit, Michigan, assisting one of our schools through the end of the school year. And excited about being at Bond, found out about it this year. And really excited about this particular session because I am a former hip hop artist. So anytime hip hop is involved, I like to be there.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So, hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Thomas Ryan. I'm the assistant principal in Montgomery County Public School System. This is my 5th year in that role as an administrator. Before that, I taught elementary school PE for 20 years. I love it. I loved everything about it. I love what I do now too. So, I'm part of the Bond leadership team. This, it was great for me to find out, this group of brothers here that, there was, that I had worked for like almost 12, 15 years before I even knew about it. So, it was really good to be a part of it. So anyways, without further ado, we're going to turn it over to Mr. Carter right here, and I'm looking forward to learning about the session too.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm excited for you all to be here with us in the space. A little bit about myself. This is an old slide. I use this, if you see me present before, I use this slide a lot. These are my people. So a little bit about myself. I'm an educator, but I'm a father first, a husband, brother, etc. Recently, I finished a book by Bruce Lee's daughter, Shannon Lee. And I really like the philosophy of the book. It's called Be Like Water, My Friend. And the philosophy of the book at the end that kind of unfolds is talking about being an artist of life. And I'm really like unpacking and thinking about that as an approach, as a way to think, as a philosophy. So I have on here that I'm an artist. And so I'm going to amend that and say artist of life, because that's kind of the new energy I think I'd like to move with. So these are some of my people. I have my partner on the far right. Married. Actually, our anniversary is coming up end of this month. So we got married in 2010. So we've been rocking together for a while. I have my oldest son up top, my youngest son, and then we just added daughter to the mix. So we are now the Carter 5. So, that's where we are right now. And, just to get back also as an educator, part of this experience and part of having a family has, really enriched my approach to the classroom and helped me kind of refine my purpose as I approach. Part of the conversation today, when we opened, we talked about coming up for air, and I shared the piece Sea Turtle. And there's some imagery in there that talks about the connection with coming up for air that I felt resonated with me as a Black educator in a system that is not really created with people of color, particularly Black people, in mind. And so for me, coming up for air, that metaphor, that image, if you will, is supposed to represent spaces and opportunities where I found I could be more authentic, because a sea turtle, as you know, they can dive and they can stay underwater for a long time, but they can't stay forever. And so there's a couple parts of the piece that I shared at the top of our meeting that talk about things you have to do to survive when you're in that type of environment. And so I found that seeking and creating with images was a really powerful way, not only for me to therapeutically unpack what I was going through, but also to actually understand better. Because when you try to represent things with images, you have to really sit with them and try to understand, well, what is this that I'm talking about? What is this experience that I've had? And so that was actually a therapeutic way for me to try and unpack my experience and start to understand it better. And so one image that has really resonated with me throughout my life is from the book Invisible Man, which is by Ralph Ellison. I remember sitting in AP English class, I think it was 10th grade. And to this point, I honestly cannot recall reading a text that really spoke to me in this way. And even in that very class, we had read other things. I hope I don't offend anyone, but we read like Wuthering Heights and Scarlet Letter and some other pieces. And I couldn't get into the book. They just didn't speak to me that way. And, we had a teacher who, I love this teacher. She was very enthusiastic, but I could not match her energy for some of these other texts. And then we read Invisible Man, and I just sat with this book, really unpacked it, and it really spoke to me in a different way than anything else that I had read up to that point. And so for the purpose of our conversation, I just have pulled out a couple quotes here. It says, "I'm an invisible man simply because people refuse to see me." And then the other quote that resonates is, "When I discover who I am, I'll be free." And so these two things I think are particularly important when you talk about being a Black male educator or an educator of color. Because number one, it says people refuse to see me. So, that's a perspective. And if you acknowledge that there are folks who are purposely, in many ways, looking the other way or not acknowledging your experience or the impacts that things have on you and people that look like you, it can be powerful to understand that and to acknowledge that, as opposed to acting like, well, I don't know why these things are happening, right? And so acknowledging it is part of being able to react to it. And then finally, when I discover who I am, I'll be free. I think for me, as a Black male educator, owning my identity was a big part of kind of shaping and naming what my impact would be. So once I kind of found language around defining who I was and discovering who I am and continuing to discover, because we never really stop learning and discovering who we are. So part of that process too was very liberating, and also inspiring, right? Like it made me want to continue to learn more about myself so I could better serve my students. Another image that really resonates in terms of this conversation is from this famous quote. It says, "Until the lion tells his side of the story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." And so I think this connects to the previous quote, but also just takes it a little bit further, because when we talk about in terms of writing and exploring through hip hop, it's really important for marginalized voices such as educators of color, Black male educators. It's really important for us to own our story and to tell that story, because until we do that, we'll have other people who kind of input their own spin on it, right? And there's a quote by Baldwin, I think it's Baldwin or Zora Neale Hurston maybe, but basically says, if you don't tell your own story, they'll kill you and tell everyone that you loved it or that you enjoyed it, right? And so we're certainly experiencing our own levels of trauma within the school system. So it's important that we tell our stories, not only to own the triumphs that we have, but also to talk about like, no, this is hurtful, this is painful, this is what you're doing is wrong, and we need to change this. So as a line in the system, it's important to tell the story of what the hunter is doing and how we can change that. But also there's another aspect to this too, like to consider yourself a lion. There are a lot of positive aspects of being a lion, despite being hunted. Lions are beautiful, they are strong, they are intelligent, they have a pack mentality, they have leadership qualities, and they have survival skills. They have natural talents that make them better equipped for their environment in many cases than a hunter, even though a hunter has tools that can kill the lion. So all of these things on the surface of working with imagery, they seem like kind of just arbitrary things, but when you apply this to an experience, if I think of myself as a lion and I talk about that whole list that I just went through, and then I think about like going back into the classroom or going back into the school system and applying that same idea or carrying this list with me mentally as I navigate spaces, it can help as a tool as I'm trying to understand, as I'm trying to predict, and as I make my plan to react to things. So if I consider myself a lion, whether I'm thinking literally like in a moment, or if I just unpack that and then go throughout my day, it will equip me differently, and will help me, I believe it will help me thrive in situations that are meant to put me down. So that brings us to kind of my why of why I'm here with you all today. So again, I mentioned at the top of the meeting, I'm working on an autoethnography hip hop album called The Progress Report. So my brother Doug is on the call. He's been a huge supporter for me kind of throughout the process. I'm excited to be at this stage where I'm starting to share some of my process. And I'm looking forward to the start of next school year when I plan to release the project. And so kind of the overall goal of working on this was basically telling my story. And so there are some things that I'll share with you today that came out of the process that were not part of my initial goal. Generally, I wanted to create something that was reflective, creative, and relevant, that could tell my story. And, you know, like I'm sharing today, what came out of it was something that was therapeutic, that was freeing, that was enlightening, and that was inspiring. And so I just hope that that this journey and this process can help someone else as well. So like to continue to share some things. Now, part of the thought process going in, we talked so far about themes and imagery. So I started by kind of doing some research, like what are some themes and imagery that people use to overcome challenging situations? And fortunately, music is really rich with those type of stories. So I put some things on the slide here. And as I talk, I want you all that are with us to think through some of your own ideas of like, what are some songs that have really strong themes and imagery, both for navigating difficult situations and also just celebrating joy and humanity, because both of those sides are really important. I put at the top famous song from Maze, Joy and Pain, Sunshine and Rain. Of course, they're talking about a relationship, but I like the juxtaposition of these two things, and ultimately throughout the song, they talk about how kind of both things are intertwined at times, and that someone who you really love can also be a source of deep pain, and almost like how being vulnerable to that can also enhance the love that you have for someone, right? Of course, I got We Gonna Be All Right, which is from the song All Right by Kendrick Lamar, one of my favorite artists. When we talk about themes, you know, this one phrase, "We gonna be all right," is repeated quite often throughout the song. And it's not in a bad way. It's actually a really strong stylistic theme, to the point where now you may go to a demonstration, and you'll hear people chanting this, or you may see it on some signs because it resonates so strongly. And even though there's a lot of intricate lyrics throughout the actual song, this is like one of the clearest messages, right? That just permeates the whole energy of the song. Then we have Living My Life Like It's Golden, which is from Jilly from Philly, Jill Scott. When we talk about joy, like this whole song, I encourage you to look it up. The whole song just kind of exudes like Black joy and excellence. And, you know, she references at times some of the struggles and difficulties that she faces, but it's never like a downtrodden, like, woe is me type of way. It's almost like she just owns her full humanity and who she is for all of the flaws and the imperfections that she has. And it's really a beautiful image that you're left with when she talks about living a golden life. And then finally, one of my favorite songs from artist formerly known as Mos Def, we have Umi Said. And so there's a refrain where he said, Umi said, "Shine your light on the world, shine your light for the world to see." And even in that piece, Yassine Bey talks about different challenges that he faces and that he sees within his community. And even despite that, at the close of each verse, comes back to this idea of, yeah, but my mom said, you better shine your light. So even with all of the things going on, there's still this joy and this resonating feeling of we're here and we're gonna contribute. We have something to say, we have something to do and accomplish. And so I think those are just some ideas of really powerful images. So I've been talking for a while. I'd love to just open it back up and hear from you all. What are some some songs or some themes and images that resonate from you? I'd like to think musically, but if you're struggling in that area, you know, you can bring in other ideas too. So let's hear from y'all. What are some, or do any of these songs that I've listed also, do any of these resonate for you in a special way?
So I'll share. Yeah, they definitely resonate with me. So I guess when you put the image up, Corey, I made the association. I knew who the songs were, who the artists were. Certainly, the feeling, the vibe you mentioned. I immediately recognize that or acknowledge that. Certainly want to go back and dig a little deeper based on some of the things you've shared. So I can think of some other songs. Sometimes Styles P, I'm Black. Sometimes I like to go to that because it's so straightforward. And, it's, he's like at the end, he said something like, I'm Black if nothing else. You know what I'm saying? It's like just this embracing his Blackness. And he talks about, some imagery in the songs are interesting. And I guess any image that someone could perceive perhaps negatively, he embraces. So I like that celebration of his Blackness. And then you mentioned going beyond just music. I'm just thinking of some images of like that joy, I guess, that celebration, like a Muhammad Ali, always one of the most inspirational that I can think of. But just his embracing, the way he embraced his full humanity, his spirituality, the craft he practiced, just, all of that. So those are some of the images I think of too, based on what you've shared.
Yourself, Wayne, you mentioned you're a hip hop artist. So what's
Oh man. I definitely have a connection to the and I think it's just personal because of my background, a connection to songs that have the theme of overcoming adversity and change. So I think about Jay-Z's Change Clothes resonates with me because, he kind of really, and a lot of people don't even get it, but he's really talking about, changing from, the hood wear to a more, stylistic and upscale style of dress, and allowing yourself to kind of live in a different world and escape what you've had or what you've known. I think about KRS's, I Can Make It. I Will Make It. I mean, just a great song, about, overcoming adversity and having a very strong mindset and the power of your words, and I think he says that in one of the lines, the power of your very word is highly underrated, so those two stick out for me, but that's probably my favorite theme in all of hip hop, just because it kind of mirrors my life.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, gentlemen. And just like to welcome, it looks like we have another person joining. So just like to welcome George to the space as well. We're just sharing some relevant songs and ideas that represent the theme or imagery of both navigating, overcoming adversity, to use Wayne's words, and also just celebrating joy in our humanity. So thank you both for sharing that. I want to move. So when we opened, let me get myself back up in here. When we opened, I shared a piece called Sea Turtle, which talked about being a Black male educator using the image of a sea turtle inside of the ocean. So, the sea turtle, you may see 1 or 2 sea turtles for every 1,000 or so fish that are in the ocean, right? And so that was about a way that I saw myself navigating the school system, where I am part of 2%, 2% of teachers that are Black males, right? And so, just using that image to talk about how I navigated, and also reminding myself how important it is to come up for air and so on. And so I wanted to share another piece as well. This was actually very early in my writing process for the project progress report. This actually will not be part of the actual piece that I released, but there's parts of this process that I think are really important if you think about how to use hip hop and writing as a tool for both celebrating joy and navigating difficulties. So this is this piece is untitled for all intents and purposes. It's a flip of the track "Whose World Is This" by Nas. And so I'm just gonna perform the first verse a cappella right here, and then we're gonna spend some time unpacking both the writing process, and some of the images therein. I swipe the touch screen, read enough themes till I'm charged, then writing in my book of plans for the minds I can sharpen. To hold the chalk, I'm starving, methodical movement, pedagogical toolkit the scholars can move with, the teach theme. Play me a night, get your class right. This fiend of EDU reignited this black life, the mind activation, actualization, times tight, khakis pacing, each class I'm embracing. Hip hop, ed off the dome, spit some gems on the sweet. Dilla beats on repeat, makes my cipher complete, whether school is in the streets, burbs, or something between. I go all in. To teach, hardly nothing competes. We keep hauling, with heads evolving in each seat. I vouch the relevance of letting them dream without the evidence of hesitancy. I'll sprout the next president that represents me. Whose world is this? It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. All right, so that was just one verse of the flip of Whose World Is This by Nas. I'll take a quick second and just see if anything resonated, but it's okay if not. So let me just, thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doug. Did anything stand out? Were you able to catch anything? I know it was kind of quick, but I'll open it
It's
up.
evolving, man. You're talking about your kids in the classroom, and that's that's great. I mean, right? It was not hip hop, but it made me think of that Stevie Wonder song, Black Man. Because you play that song at the end of it, it's like a call and response where they have teachers going out and calling out, different facts and different, actually people from all, all races and ethnicities, and it's really talking about, teaching our kids, about, us, and so it was cool, man. I liked it.
Thank you, appreciate that. Anything else that y'all picked up? All right, no worries, no worries. Let's jump into, I'm gonna unpack it a little bit. So on the screen right now, what I've done is just a little bit of side-to-side analysis, because I want to break down again how you can approach this process. And this is actually something that I use when I'm first getting started with writing. I pick like a piece that I really respect, or a piece that maybe has some cultural relevance, or both, right? And so here I found that Nas obviously has a lot of respect in the hip hop community, and this song in particular for me, I just vibe with the message and with his imagery and storytelling. And so what I wanted to do is a technique called ghosting, because at first I was struggling with how I could get my ideas or my experiences unpacked and into the hip hop format. And I found that it's really important for me to use this language of hip hop in a way that's fluent, right? And easy to pick up for other people, so that I can transfer my ideas and my experience of being a Black male educator. So ghosting basically means you're taking the structure and the skeleton of someone else's song, and you're trying as much as possible to transfer that with your own message. And to me, what I love about ghosting is it really challenges you depending on how deep you want to go with it. You could ghost, people ghost all the time. You could ghost and just kind of like take somebody's whole line and just change the last line, right? Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Carter. Like I use the whole line from Jay-Z and just change my name. Technically that's ghosting, but it's not really doing much. Now, what I try to do here with Nas is I try to take his rhyme scheme, meaning A, B, A, B, or A, B, B, A, and follow that same pattern, as well as in some cases, I tried to rhyme the same words that he rhymed. So if he ended a line with an ing rhyme, like thinking, then in my line, I wanted to rhyme a similar word. So I might say sinking. So we'll get into that. But ultimately, the biggest thing, the most important part of this challenge is you want to stay relevant to your message. So my message here was, how can I talk about why I love being an educator? How can I talk about what calls me to the classroom? Because I found that that's not a message that is shared quite often enough. And even more so, it's not shared through hip hop, at least in my experience. I haven't seen a lot of hip hop albums out there or heard a lot of rap songs that are talking about like, yo, this is why teaching is dope. This is why I'm a Black man out here leading the classroom, and why everybody should get into this. And so I just want to unpack a little bit. So if you look at, let's see, on the left side of your screen, you've got Nas, and it's got bars 1 and 2, just excerpt from his lyrics. And then I have broken it down across the beats, right? So you have mind activation, react like I'm facing. Let me get this pointer. So Nas here, mind activation, react like I'm facing, time like Pappy Mason with pens I'm embracing. So he's got a lot of imagery packed in there, and he's got a lot of internal rhymes. So I highlighted them in different colors to show you how many different times he rhymes with himself. So mind and time, acty, act like, Pappy. So he's got that one, and then he's got activation, facing, mason, embracing. So that's like what, 4 different rhyming words within 2 bars. So on my side, I have got to keep mind activation, right? Because that's like your goal as an educator. So I kept mind activation. And then I changed, he said, react like I'm facing time. Well, I didn't want to talk about facing time because he's talking about jail time. So I wanted to keep the theme of mind activation, and I stretched it to actualization. So actualization, you know, that's like, actually, that's beautiful. That's the next step. If I'm activating minds in the classroom, then I'm moving them towards actualization. That means you're realizing the tangible, you know, the tangible parts of what you're thinking, right? So I like that. And then the next line, he says, react like I'm facing time like Pappy Mason with pens I'm embracing. So this is nice, right? Nas has a metaphor here because he's talking about Pappy Mason who went to jail. Jail is the penitentiary, so we know that that's sometimes called the pen. But now he's talking about, I'm going to react like I'm facing time as if I'm going to jail, and with pens I'm embracing. So he's embracing the pen to write his rhymes, or he's embracing the fact that he could be facing time. So a lot there. So for me, I was like, well, what am I doing? I'm obviously facing up against time as an educator always, right? But hopefully I'm not thinking about going to jail. So what I said was mind actualization, time's tight, khakis pacing, each class I'm embracing. Now I kind of played myself here because I don't want y'all to think like necessarily I got tight khakis on, but it's all good. Sometimes, you know, gotta be professional. They fit, they're not tight, but whatever. But time is tight and my khakis are pacing because I'm like walking around the classroom, right? So I'm trying to paint that image. And I say each class I'm embracing. So I'm not embracing pens. Well, I'm embracing pens like to write, but I'm embracing my classes because I want to explore that image, right? When the kids come in the classroom, I want them to feel like they're being embraced. I want them to feel the energy of me rushing around the classroom. And I recognize that my time is tight because I'm only with y'all for a short period of the day. And I want to embrace you during that time. I want to challenge you, and I want to make sure that your minds are activated and that you are actualizing your potential. So there's a lot of powerful images, even in just 2 bars, that you can explore, that you can unpack. And ultimately, like I said, about carrying the image with you. So we talked earlier about like how if you think of yourself as the lion and how the lion needs to tell his story as a counter story to what the hunter is saying. Here, I'm using 2 bars to kind of like set my purpose. So when I think about going in the classroom right next day, if I have these 2 bars carrying with me, mind activation, actualization, times tight, khakis pacing, each class I'm embracing. That took me like 4 seconds to say, but that's a lot. That's a whole class worth of stuff that I'm doing, right? I got to make sure all the kids are feeling activated, so they're engaged. I got to make sure that they are actualizing their potential for the day. You know, I got to recognize how much time I have with them. I got my professional khakis on. I'm moving around the classroom, and then I'm making sure that everyone feels embraced. So again, I would encourage, if this is a tool that you want to try, even just focusing on, 2 bars of a song, you can really pack a lot in there. And then here, just to talk a little bit more about this technique of ghosting, this is where I really got my hip hop nerd on. So like I tried to do as much copying from Nas as I could and staying true to my own message. So wipe the sweat off my dome, spit the phlegm on the streets. I hope nobody spits phlegm in my classroom because we're gonna have an issue, right? But I'm gonna spit some gems. We're gonna drop some gems of knowledge. So we got that. He's talking about Tim's on his feet. I can't wear Tim's too many times in the classroom because my feet gonna look crazy. But I'm gonna drop some gems over Dilla beats. So we think about freestyling in the classroom, starting the day with some instrumentals going, getting the minds flowing, and then think about not only myself dropping gems, but maybe open it up. Like, we're going to end class today with a cipher. How can we freestyle out as an exit ticket what you took from class today? Does it have to rhyme? No, but just say something to this beat, right? And I do this whether school is in the streets, suburbs, or something in between, because we're embracing, that we have students everywhere and that all these students, deserve our best, right? And so I'm saying, like, put me anywhere, I'm ready. And nothing competes for me. Nothing competes with teaching. Like, this is my ultimate purpose. My highest calling is to try and be an artist of life and to share that with students and young people. And then thank you, Thomas, for pointing this out. Heads evolving in each seat. Like, every student sitting in your classroom has so much potential, right? And so, like, they're continuously going through this process of evolving and learning. And we are just a part of that. We get to witness that process for a period of time each day. And so for me, I thought that was like just evidence of why nothing competes with teaching, right? Because I'm right here, like, I got 23 kids right here just doing stuff that nobody even imagined. Like, they're just changing and transforming right in front of our eyes. So really powerful. Any questions about ghosting or anything that we talked about right here? All right, cool.
Boy, I have a quick question. Just,
Yeah.
I'm curious. I guess if you look at like how long you've actually been writing rhymes, is ghosting something that you picked up like early in the process, or is this something that you stumbled across recently, or just wanted to get a sense of, your experience with ghosting?
Yeah, appreciate that. So ghosting. So I started writing poetry in middle school. And then in high school, I kind of transitioned from poetry to starting writing rhymes. And then actually I picked up ghosting in college. And that really was part of like a few techniques that I picked up that really boosted my writing skills. I think ghosting could be something that people try at any level, whether you're first starting your writing or whether you've been doing it for a long time. I think it's similar to how you have like painters, elite painters who study the classics and they try to imitate what they consider the masters of the art form, right? Because you learn from their techniques of blending, the way that they compose, the way they organize the piece. And so I think it's very similar to that in terms of hip hop. I'm looking at Nas, that's my Michelangelo, right? So I'm trying to learn from how he composes, how he puts his rhyme schemes together, and hopefully some of that rubs off. So I also do a lot of ghosting of Black Thought, because I feel like if you could put something together like that, brother, you're in good shape. Even if you're taking it and going your own way with it, ultimately, you're also studying under the greats of the art form.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on ghosting before we move? All right. I got my Allen Iverson up here because a big part of any of these approaches is that you have to practice them, right? You have to think about how to use it, and then you just got to get in there and do it. And the last example of an image that I have here, of course, is the rose that grew from concrete. So this is our good friend Tupac, and he's got his piece, Did You Hear About the Rose That Grew from a Crack in the Concrete? Very famous image at this point, but when he did it, it was so fresh, like, because you have this juxtaposition and you have this kind of like situation where it's like, well, no, I would never think about a rose actually growing from concrete. That doesn't make sense. But then when he presents the whole story, it's like, I see the picture that he's painting, right? I can walk this journey with him and what he's doing. So I wanted to give you all an opportunity to try to do this. And at the top of the meeting, I shared that we are in the virtual space for a couple of reasons. One, because I encourage your participation and I need you to be thinking about that, but also because we're going to try some new stuff. And sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. So what I have is a Jamboard. So if you can click the link, it should be open. We're actually going to start on page 2 for the interest of time. And I just want you all to just think for a little bit. We've talked a lot about not only just the journey that led me to this project, but also the relevance of images and themes, and ultimately how writing can be used as a tool to celebrate joy and also navigate difficulties. So on my second page here, it just says add a sticky note and share your rhymes, imagery, thoughts, stems, etc. That do either, whether they're navigating the negative situation or celebrating the positive. Excuse me. And just, I just want to kind of get like a stream of consciousness real quick, where we just kind of share some ideas. It could be just something that's on your mind right now. I mean, there's plenty, right? So I just want to take a few minutes here, and what you can do if you're unfamiliar with Jamboard, on the left side of the screen, there's a toolbar. Actually, let me try to share my screen so y'all can. So on the left side of the screen here, there's a toolbar. You have the pen, so if you wanted to, you could write directly on the slide. But I actually like this sticky note option here. It's just a little square with the 2 lines in it. If you click that, you can type your message. So a theme that I'm thinking about is like virtual learning. That could be a theme. You could do a lot right on that, right? So you just type in your message, you hit done, and it'll pop your little sticky note right here, and you can just drop it on the slide. So gentlemen, if you could share some themes, stems, ideas, it could even be a rhyme. Just drop something on the slide for the purpose of our conversation.
Hey, C. Carter, I think you may have to change the settings.
Is
It's
it live?
view, yeah, it's view only right now.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Let me fix that. Okay, so you might have to refresh the page, and then it should allow you to edit. Thank you for that, George. Are y'all able to edit at this point? Okay. So we're actually coming up on our last minute together. So what I will say is, I would just encourage you all to take these skills back, whether it's for other educators that you work with, or if it's for yourself. And I'll just encourage you to write. I mean, at the next one, next time we're here together, Wayne, I'm gonna have you get on and spit some bars of yours. But again, just encourage you to use these tools and continue to tell your story, because the lion has to share his piece too. Now, let me read this. Everybody loves the sunshine. Sunny days have motivated me to push through the past year. Absolutely. So sunshine right there. Just a beautiful image as well. There's plenty of it outside. So if you have a sunny day in your area, I encourage you to get some sunshine today. And thank you all for being with me and engaging and listening. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Corey. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate y'all sharing time with us today. And that's awesome. Hey, Corey was rocking the happy hour last night with his DJ, man. So that was good stuff he was doing last night. I appreciate you sharing this, breaking down the beats and rhymes, man. That was cool for me to see. I mean, I'm not a rapper, I'm not a hip hop, but I appreciate seeing that, the writing process, down at that level with the beats, and that was cool. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Real nice. Thank you, bro.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.